All right, hey friends, I'm Preston Sprinkle, and this is Theology in the Raw, the YouTube version. I'm here with my friend BJ Thompson. Dude, you're here live, man. This is the first time we hung out in person.
That's crazy.
Now, you're a third-time guest. This is your third time. We did two. This is your third time.
That was like your biggest episode, was it?
It was one of them.
Yeah, well, I don't even know what we said. What were we talking about?
I don't.
It was
back
something
then,
controversial.
what did we do? Probably.
It was something controversial.
Well, I don't even know what we did talk about.
It was good though.
It was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was good.
You're the first person to do 3 podcasts.
That's crazy.
Or this is now YouTube.
That's crazy.
Maybe it'll be podcast. We'll turn
That's
it
right.
podcast too.
Hey, make sure y'all tell him to send my check. Go ahead. That's right.
Tell us about what you do.
So, my name is BJ Thompson. I'm a Dallas native, not a Cowboy fan or hater. I serve as the executive director of an organization called Build a Better Us, which is all about growth and development. We create products, services, and experiences that help grow people through coaching and transformation. So,
what kind of people are you coaching? I mean, all kinds of different
people. I mean, any aspect of coaching. So we do relationships. We work through health. Mm-hmm. We have products for people who want to just do life coaching. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we just have the gamut. So anything around coaching and development, yeah, that's what we do. So
if someone if they want coaching, they contact
buildabetterus.com, click the Get Involved button, click Life Coach, find a coach that fits for you and your needs. The initial consultation is free.
That's our opening commercial. All right, we don't need to do any ads on this.
No, we do. I'll send you some more. Go ahead. I got some more plugs. Go ahead.
You also are a pastor.
Yeah,
sort of.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Well, describe for us your pastoral ministry.
Yeah, so I would say specific to my pastoral ministry, I am more of a faith leader who is a catalyzer for faith communities. Right? So that's more of my role is like, hey, we can create a community of people and develop it. But a lot of what I do is I share leadership. So I share teams and structure and just the whole nine. I just ensure that a lot of times, overall, we're going in the right direction. So, yeah.
Now, you're the church,
the house church.
The house church, yeah. So tell us, so when a lot of people hear house church, they've got images in their mind of, I know in some cases it's kind of like, ooh, that's weird. A bunch of weird people, or what's going on there.
If I'm there, it's not weird. It's got to be a cool church. It's gotta be cool.
Are you anti-institutional church? That's a bad way to put it.
Oh, wow. Okay, Preston.
Why would you plant specifically house church? Tell us about your ecclesiological drive and passion.
Got it. So I grew up in a missionary Baptist church. Have always had value and appreciated that expression of faith. Got to college, was involved, where I was more so involved in a non-denominational / reformed kind of culture. And I think just being in that and then moving into a, church planning network kind of culture and then this missional community culture, I've seen a lot of expressions of how, institutional church works. And at a certain point, you're supposed to grow up. You're supposed to be able to help leave and pour into others. You're supposed to be able to care and develop. And that's what I did. I grew up, right? And so part of my growing up was saying, man, this doesn't fit me in a way that I can feel spiritually nourished. And instead of putting the burden back on people who I know, pastors as the leaders or institution, why don't I just live out all of the missionary things that I've been taught and listen to God and then respond by doing what he put in front of me, which was a house church. So, that's how to develop. Go ahead.
Yeah, a couple years ago. Yeah. Now, one of the things that I've been thinking about, we've talked about this offline, and I got let me kind of ease into this question maybe. I'm concerned at some of the problems that the financial structure in a so-called traditional Western evangelical church, I'm concerned at how some of the financial structures not will, but can hinder discipleship and mission. When I think of the church, I think there's mission, there's discipleship. Those are kind of the two broad umbrella categories. I guess worship would be, but I think worship is probably the overarching category. Discipleship, mission, And sometimes in a traditional model of church, when you got budgets to meet, you got the rent to pay, the AC bill, you've got salaries, all this stuff.
Right.
And if you preach a sermon that upsets 20% of the people, especially if it's the ones that are giving a lot of money, that's problematic.
That's right.
So that's why I'm concerned that that kind of financial structure can play a role in hindering discipleship and mission when growing the church and keeping that growth is essential for the very existence of the church machine. Maybe that's a negative word, the church structure. Can you speak, because your model is very different from that. Was that intentional, that you would strip away the financial piece?
Yeah, so I think one of the things is that we have to be careful to not villainize or demonize people institutionally.
Right.
And as I've grown older, I've recognized, you know what? I don't particularly land there, but I'm not anti that. And I just say that because oftentimes people can swing the pendulum and they can go and do something new, and you know what they're against, not what they're for.
Yeah, that's good.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think knowing that is like, man, this is what I'm for. I'm not rallying against what I'm against. But I think one of the greatest challenges that I begin to see as well is, man, if there's a convicting word or something that needs to happen or structural shift that needs to occur because of time, because of shepherding, because of discipleship, a lot of times it's very challenging to do that because of positions and titles and money. And, one thing that, was very convicting for me was I still need my soul nourished. I still need the missional, disciple aspects of church and worship and teaching and all that, but I don't know how to reconcile this. And so when I discovered some more of what the church has always been doing, right? You talk about house church is not a weird thing because most of the New Testament was written to a house church, right? And which makes it make more sense when it says if a person can't lead their own house, right? That one makes that's context, good. Right? And so the weirdness left when I realized that it was much more biblical than what I understood. I think for me personally, it was so important to remove money and title. Not that we don't exercise generosity, because we do. So that when people do things, it's coming from a genuine place, right? So if I talk about something, if I'm living in something, without a shadow of a doubt, there's nothing that I have on the line for me to say this. The only thing on the line is a conviction, right? And so, so I just think it's so important for us to, even if you're in an institutional structure that has that business-like model, it is important for us to guard against that, because you do not want to stifle or choke out the word of God because of those other strains.
Yeah. And just I love what you said at the beginning, just that there's no like one model that's perfect.
For sure.
Even ones that might have internal, problems or hindrances, they're also doing thing really well and discipling people. And I know loads of pastors who are in a very traditional church model, and dude, they're doing amazing things with mission and discipleship. But some of them would even say, man, the very intrinsic nature of the finances and the church model.
For sure.
Yeah, I almost wish I could snap my fingers and make it go away. But what else do I do?
That's right.
I gotta get paid, and there's other people on staff that need to be released for ministry, and clearly it's biblical to release people for ministry. 1 Corinthians 9 and 1 Timothy talk about that. But I want to go back because you said something, and I'm gonna go here, man. I don't know. I didn't think I was gonna go here, but I've talked about this.
Is why that podcast was like that, because of this, because of this thing right here. This is why it was like, whoa, who is this? Who is this person? Because of this, you're like, I'm gonna ask him.
I'm gonna go here, man. And if you don't want to go here, just let me know.
Do it.
So I've talked to several, I will say, older millennial black evangelicals who have had a stint in the largely white Reformed evangelical world and didn't have the best experience.
Yeah, myself included.
Okay, so Can you, for somebody who's like, I don't even know what you're talking about or what's going on, but I guess the one name that most people are going to recognize is Lecrae. And I know, from my vantage point, as a white person, I can say this, I guess, 'cause as a white person looking on from the outside, he was really into this evangelical reform world.
Absolutely.
But from my vantage point, I don't tell me if this is offensive. I mean, it's almost like when he started to get too black. Then they're like, whoa. You start talking about social issues. You start, tweeting things like a picture of a bunch of slaves on July 4th.
Family, July 4th, 1776, yeah.
My ancestors on July 4th.
Yeah.
Which is a brilliant tweet.
That blew up. Yeah.
I didn't see anything wrong with that. So what's going on? Then I talked to my buddy Tyler Burns, my new buddy, and he had the same kind of experience. So what was your experience like?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So what is the rub with people of color in Protestant, specifically SBC, evangelical kind of denominations? And I think there's a couple of things. Let me humanize this. There is a beauty in wanting to learn, understand scripture with very nuanced system and structure. There's a beauty in it, right? There's things that you just would not have even asked yourself about, affections and textual understanding. There's just things. It's so rich to be able to have that, right? And I think that sometimes people are not thinking critically about the faith. So it really does. It gives you like certain aspects of being critical about your faith. But in the process of it, what it can also do is it can gut a lot of the relational, the emotional aspects of that, which lead to the greater friendship, right? And because in some ways it's saying, just come learn this system and structure, and once you do it, you're solid. You're sound. We're going to give you a stamp. And as long as you don't deviate from that in how you communicate, then now you are acceptable. And I think that for Black Christians, Black American Christians specifically, we have long been in a position to where we've had to say to those in power, the Christianity of the land does not match the Christianity of the Bible. Right?
Keep going, man.
So the fact that you have these Puritans and these individuals who know all of these things about Scripture, the Jonathan Edwards, and yet they own another human being, is a idol, is an abomination, is hypocrisy, right? And I think that in a lot of ways, the Black Christian, Black American Christian, and diaspora has had to become the conscience of the global Christianity, especially in the white church, to say this is off, right? And so I think part of the experience is because white supremacy says, I know already, I understand, there can't be anything different. When others, non-Western, Eastern, non-European people try to contribute things to God in ways that are authoritative, it won't be accepted because it doesn't fit neatly into that system. And so,
now, would you say that's a race-specific issue, or is it more
white.
Just
White.
So
It's white, and I'll tell you why I say white. Because it's built into a structure that's impenetrable, and it's supported in a society that says, no matter where you go in the world, whiteness is going to always float to the top, right? So it's not, and I don't mean white as in German. I don't mean white as in Irish. I don't mean white as in Scandinavian. Those are ethnic groups.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
White as in the structure of recognizing people on a certain pigment and then giving them a certain measure of social authority, right? And so what I'm saying is, when you mix that with religion, now you're saying that the people who are closest to God are the people who have this system and structure. And anybody that wants to get close to God in a meaningful, more mature way, all they need to be is in this system. And so this is why you have a lot of Black and people of color saying, oh, well, let me just be a part of this. Lecrae, let me just be a part of this. You have the best system, the best schools. There's a lot of money here, and I put best in quotation marks, right? But then when you try to bring your full humanity to that equation, you realize you don't accept the full dignity of my humanity. You don't accept my story. There's no merit here, there. And as a matter of fact, when I bring you the issues of like what you see in Acts, like, yo, y'all neglecting this. Instead of acknowledging, yo, we are neglecting this, let's restructure this system. There is a business as usual kind of tone that happens. And I think that's what drives out people.
I guess I wonder if it's still more a specific brand of a white evangelical.
I know SBC.
Yeah, because I don't know. I know, like, even when you talk about church, or even just like acknowledging the power and privilege that could come with being white in certain contexts. I'm going to push back on that a little bit.
No. Does.
Well, okay.
Right, does. Does.
But in certain in most contexts, not every context.
99%. Bro, think about this. People look to, would not question, who's in authority. You look for a white man.
In some context.
Only in Atlanta. I'm in Atlanta, so it's not in my not in my context. But I'm saying it's global. It's not we're not talking about an area.
Well, so if I go to China,
I was in Belize. Yeah, they bleached their skin.
Okay. China, Southeast
Asia. They have a
like...
commercial with this black man, and he walks over to a washer.
I saw this.
Right?
That was weird, man. Yeah, okay.
And this is
okay,
what
that's
I'm
fair.
saying.
Okay, but let me give you a scenario in my own life.
Go ahead.
Because I'm in certain evangelical spaces that are so eager to not have like white people in power and everything. So, for instance, I go speak. I'm not going to name denominations, or it was a campus ministry.
Good.
They value diversity. I mean, it's the top priority. They had me come in and speak on issues of sexuality and gender. They spent I kid you not, and it was a pretty diverse. I would say it was a very diverse room. Both the leaders weren't white. One guy was Asian, the other guy was black. They spent 5 minutes apologizing that they brought in a white male speaker.
Good.
What? And they said, but it's in terms of this issue, he's the only guy that we trust. He has the best stuff, but we're so sorry that it's almost like I'm sorry for being. I disagreed to this, man. But like, so I don't feel like in that context, and maybe that's the 1% you're talking about.
And that's what I mean. That's a rare context.
Okay. So maybe, I don't know. I feel like I do experience that a little
because
more, but I'm not in the kind of.
And that's what I was about to say, because you live with the marginalized. So your normal is this. Your normal is working with people who suffer greatly and they're marginalized in society. That's why you're like, I don't know. I guess what I'm saying, your original question was, why is it that black folks are leaving these things? And I'm saying because you realize at a certain point that the dignity and the humanity of who you are has to be something you have to fight for. And I just think, I just said this to my white friends. I'm like, I'm not going to fight for my humanity and my dignity. So you can think whatever you're going to think. What I'll say to you is you have a warped view of the Christian faith. And that same thing happened with George Whitefield, right? Who was this great hero, talk about how great he was. He adopted all these kids, blah, 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 orphan, he prayed.
Did he own slaves?
Deeper than that. The orphanage was losing money. Georgia was losing money. George Whitefield writes a letter to the King of England or somebody else to reinstitute a charter for slavery in Georgia.
You serious?
I'm absolutely serious.
But you take the whitest, most Southern Baptist person, they're going to say, they're going to condemn that.
They don't, because there's
schools, or do they not?
The schools are still named George Whitefield, right? They still teach you this history in the educational institution. But
you're saying they just wash over that
as a
part of
offense, right? And here's what I'm saying. Here's what's at the heart of it. The heart of it is Your soul belongs to God, but your body belongs to us.
I was going to say something else.
Yeah, I almost said something else, right? So it doesn't matter. Like, as long as we can help you be spiritually renewed, you can make a decision, you can get baptized, all that. That's the ultimate thing. The fact that you are oppressed, living in unjust society, living in inequality, that doesn't mean anything. And I think this is the rub that black people, they're just like, what is this? How is this a part of following Yeshua? When do you see this happening in the church? And it's because you don't see it happening in the church. You only see the church doing that when the church is unhealthy. If you're going to go, let's go scripture. Let's look at what happened when the Lord was bringing manna. He said, look, I'm going to have you go out to bring manna, to go gather manna. And then when you show up, no matter how much you got, too little, too much, that's going to be enough. Why? There are people who were lame. There were children. There were marginalized people who could not get. The Lord was like, I'm going to ensure that you have. Same with the New Testament church. When they recognized, man, we could be living with an unseen bias. They said the widows were like, hey, I don't understand why you guys are neglecting us. They didn't know, right? It's the same. It's like, damn, I don't know. What did they do? They restructured. They allotted new funds. They created something so that now that bias that maybe they did not see at first could be remedied because their faith was now needing to speak in it. And I just think the biggest challenge that I see with evangelicals is they will not let go of those funds. They will not restructure. And when they do, they will do so void of the power. And I just think people like myself are just tired of fighting. They're just like, have fun.
So it's not, I mean, so it's you, it's a few others we've named. I mean, do you see there's a lot more out there that have had this kind of experience? And
all leaving. Okay. Wow. And they're all leaving.
Leaving to where?
They don't know. They don't know.
I want to go back to, so Whitefield and Edwards owned slaves,
of course,
too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to play the devil's advocate.
Devil need no more advocates.
not even devil's advocate. That was a genuine question. I mean, these are people that are product of their times. But wait.
I disagree with this though, Preston.
No. Okay. Everybody's gonna say that was a horrendous evil. Or I mean, I don't know a single white person. Well, in my context at least, that they wouldn't be like, yeah, that I don't know how somebody could ever think, given the product, whatever. But like that's just such a horrendous evil. It's a blind spot. You know, we probably have in 200 years, what are they going to look back on? But even someone, so you think like MLK. From what we can see, the dude was a blatant misogynist. I would have no problem having a statue of MLK, had a school named after MLK. Doesn't mean I'm celebrating misogyny. That was a blind spot that he had. I'm celebrating loads of other things about his life. This major, maybe even a product of his time. Could, as many men in that era were, still are. So what about that? I mean, can we not celebrate all the good things that Jonathan Edwards did while acknowledging, and Whitefield, this major blind spot, which had to do somewhat with the product? Doesn't excuse it. But
no, for sure. So there's a passage when it says, do not repeat the sins of your forefathers. And what I want to challenge white people on is we don't do a good enough job uprooting white supremacy in our theology. And so because we're spending all this time, we're saying, we all agree that that's wrong. How much time are you realistically taking to understand the social, spiritual, theological dynamics that existed that allowed this to persist, and then uprooting the whiteness from it?
Yeah.
So because we don't spend any time, now we're just saying blanketly this wrong, right?
That's Jamar Tisby's book, right?
That's exactly right. Is the color of compromise? Make sure you go pick it up, because we don't know. Because what it does is it provokes guilt and shame. And I'm saying the cross is big enough for your guilt and shame. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so for me, I think it's challenging because we're talking about sex trafficking. We're not talking about a consensual relationship with another adult. Yeah. Right? And the horrendous evil we don't even barely know. Like, many of us haven't even, because our history books are not teaching us anything about these subjects, we don't really even know what happened, right? We're just saying, oh, well, I'll just, there's some good things about it. And so I just think, back to the original question, what makes this such a problematic relationship is because people of color are coming into context saying, we value some of these things, but there's a lack of love and there's a lack of justice here. And the fact that there is no movement in a way that would restructure it is what puts people of color away. Like, I don't know how is this even biblical, right? Go ahead.
No, I'm going to agree with you here. Not that my opinion matters, but I mean, when I learned church history, we learned about Jonathan Edwards, we learned about George Whitefield, never once mentioned.
No, of course.
These
or Rich
dark
Allen.
areas.
Or Rich Allen.
Okay, yeah. I mean, add them up, man.
Or Richard Allen.
Yeah.
They left the Anglican Church because of racism. They tried to stay Anglican. Then, when they tried to stay Anglican, they brought archbishops over, and they still experienced white supremacy and racism. They wanted to integrate. And then ended up having to start the AME Church.
Right.
That's what
I didn't learn about that in seminary either.
That's what I'm saying. But that's intentional because we're not willing to deal with the sins of our forefathers.
I would, from my vantage point, I think it's not like they intentionally said, gosh, we know our professors got together and said, like, Jonathan Edwards owned slaves, but we're going to make sure we don't talk about. I think it's just the blissful ignorance of having a white experience and not even like, I guess, he owned slaves too, but let's talk about his theology. Like, we have the ability to be able to not even care about that. Whereas what I hear you saying is, like, we need to go out of our way to talk about and condemn so that we don't repeat these kind of
This is a great
patterns.
point. So you're married, right? What kind of stuff I know, same. What kind of stuff your wife get on to you about?
Oh, man.
What kind of stuff she get on to you about? That you didn't know about? That your wife got on to you about in marriage that you were not aware of? Give me some stuff.
Lack of showing, like, love and intimacy or just reaffirmation, just kind of, I said it on the wedding day, I do. Like, what do I just keep saying that? Well, yeah, actually, you need to keep saying that. I mean, I got a whole laundry list. Is this?
No, same. I got a whole list. So my wife gets on me about my tone. She's like, you said that too forceful, too hard to me. I can't accept that. Yeah. Right? Preston, I move off the issue because I value her and see her as my equal. And now I'm really wrestling through those things, right? The problem that I see in these mixed churches historically, because we're not talking about now, we're not talking about the last 15 years. I just listed, Rich Allen, and that happened in the 1700s, right? Is that whites, because they have grown in this comfortability, we're not seeing the full dignity and humanity of Black Americans because of these idols. Now, even when it's said, it's brushed off, right? It's not taken seriously. So I don't think it's just MLK busted people for that. The letter from a Birmingham jail was all about that. Frederick Douglass busted people for that. Nat Turner busted people for that. It's not about it's not about whether or not you have pondered it. It's that when the people who mention it to you, the least of these say it to you, you're not taking them seriously. You're blowing them off. You're giving this, you're giving that. And I'm just saying, a marriage like that won't work.
I feel like now, and maybe it took the George Floyd riots to wake. I feel like now people are.
I don't agree with that.
Listening much better than they have in the past.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with it. I honestly don't agree with it. Until you see a restructuring, they're not listening.
Well, I mean, listening. Could take a little bit, right?
Until you say restructuring, they're not listening.
What does restructuring look like? What do you mean?
So one of the greatest challenges that we faced was from the civil rights movement, right? They started the conversation around integration, okay? When that conversation moved into equality,
right,
removing these things, right, the conversation stopped. We just took down the signs. We said you can come patronize our businesses.
That was it.
And then put new rules in. Then we created things like redlining.
Mhm.
Then we started adding new laws to put people in prison and mass incarceration. And so there was no restructuring.
You're talking about society, though. You're talking about not the church.
But the church hadn't moved much. The church was involved in a lot of this. You know, the Color Compromise, the reason why it's such a profound book, just talks about how they were complicit in this. They didn't even want it as well. And what I'm saying is, we have not moved until we actually start you have to lose something.
Yeah.
And I think that's the greatest challenge is like, we're so entitled, we don't think that we should have to sacrifice anything significant in terms of power. And what I would say is, we're not going to see true unity, meaningful cross-cultural unity until that happens on a structural level, not just, man, I'm reading this book.
Yeah.
I feel my heart is this. It's like God came to save a people, not just a person.
Would you say just a real tangible, we got to get to the airport.
Go ahead.
Yeah. A real tangible, practical, clear first step towards restructuring would be churches having people of color, we'll say specifically black people, in leadership positions. I mean, is that too simple? Is that, or what?
No,
give me a real tangible. Like, what would, huh?
No, I'll just tell you exactly. Because inequality, racism is about lack of power, lack of control, right? That's what it's all about. It's about power and control. One of the most practical things you can do, because there's a social imbalance, is for you to empower black charities and businesses financially. See, we love to have minority served, right? We love to talk about that all the time. We don't love to support minority owned. And because we don't want to give agency over your body. We don't want to give that back to you. And what I'm saying is, that is what God does to his people. He's like, no, I'm giving agency over you.
Right.
Nobody owns you. You can't be owned. And so one of the most practical things you can do is go find organizations, again, that you value, that you're not in control of, right? So you think about how scary, it's an act of faith, right? Find minority owned, not just minority served.
No, yeah.
Charities and businesses, and then fund them, write a check. Why? Not that money is everything, but money is a big part of this, because money says, now, if you don't agree with me, let's go back to that church conversation, right? You're not sitting here in fellowship with me because you're afraid that I can let you go and fire you. You're sitting here because you have your own agency and your own control of your own life. Now we share a mutually consented friendship and relationship. And I think this is where we're going to start seeing real healing. So one of the ways you can do is go to buildabetterus.com, hit the donate button, and get behind the work that we're doing, right? Go find other black-owned, minority-owned charities and businesses, and then rally the church to spend money with them, to invest and to empower them. So that now, as you bring them into the conversation, they're coming in with an equity, like a wife.
That won't come off as paternal or white savior kind of.
Not when they own it.
Okay.
When it's serving, when it's just served, that's paternalism.
Okay.
When I own something, that's empowerment.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good distinction.
Yeah.
We gotta go, man.
I know.
Dude, we just got started, man.
I know.
Appreciate you, brother. I appreciate your voice, your wisdom, your challenge, your honesty is so refreshing. The fact that we can sit down and have this conversation.
Yeah.
So hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time on Theology in the Raw.